Many of us like to start our day with a cup of coffee. Maybe more than one. It's seen as a need, not a want. And over the past year, we've seen a jump in the price both of our home brew and our coffee shop favourite. But those price increases are a fraction of the surges we're seeing on wholesale markets in New York and London, where roasters buy their beans. And given the lag between wholesale and retail prices, that means coffee lovers are in for a bitter wake-up call this year. To understand why this is happening and what this might mean for consumption, we thought we'd take a closer look. It's what we do here on Reuters Econ World. Every week, we pick a phrase or buzzword and go deep on the economic principles and ideas driving the biggest news around the world. So this week, coffee. I'm your host, Carmel Crimmins, in Dublin. In economics, if a change in price doesn't change the demand for something, then that good or service is usually considered to have inelastic demand. It's a wonky way of saying people will pay for something regardless of the price. Coffee is often considered an inelastic product. But price increases during a cost of living crisis have tested consumer patience. Starbucks, for instance, has seen a drop in sales. And people are adapting. They're going for cheaper options or brewing at home. J.M. Smucker, the company behind Folgers, saw its coffee sales rise 3% between August and October, despite passing on price hikes to consumers. The average retail price of ground roast coffee has jumped 15% in American cities in the past year, breaching $7 a pound. But the price of wholesale coffee beans has nearly doubled, including a jump of around 20% so far this year, meaning things are expected to get a lot pricier for consumers, potentially testing just how inelastic the demand for coffee is. So to talk all this through, we invited Marcelo Teixeira, who covers soft commodities, that would be coffee, sugar and cocoa, for Reuters in New York, back onto the show. Marcelo, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
There's nothing soft about these markets right now. This is where it's all at, right? You were on the pod before talking about cocoa,
Yes.
which just soared last year, right?
Yes.
Everyone right now seems to be talking about the price of eggs, but coffee, it's just go, go, go.
Yeah, it's a very sharp increase in a very short time. We have two main varieties of coffee in the market, which is the Robusta, usually used to make instant coffee and as a blend in some of the brands. And we have the Arabica coffee, which is considered like a higher quality.
Yeah.
Is the top type of beans that, Starbucks, Nespresso, all these high-end cafeterias they use, right?
Yeah.
They are kind of interconnected because the roasters, the industry, they use both in their blends. So if one rises too much, they start using the other one.
I see.
And then the other one also rises together. So both of them hit all-time highs. The Arabica one hit all-time highs for 14 times in a row.
Whoa!
Like 14 trading sessions at the ICE exchange in New York, we saw Arabica coffee hitting all-time highs every day. So imagine that for us, that covering that story.
That is crazy.
Yeah, we never seen this before. How quick the prices went up and how high they got. That's the first time we see prices at this level. And they went up 70% last year.
Wow. Like, is coffee the hottest commodity right now?
It is. Right now, it used to be cocoa, right? Some months ago.
Right. Yeah.
And now it's coffee, definitely. And it has an impact on the whole chain, right?
Yeah.
So costs go up for traders, for importers. It goes up for people that buys the packages in the grocery stores. So it's a difficult situation for the whole chain to deal with.
Right. And the coffee market is kind of interesting. It's dominated, right, by Brazil and Vietnam.
Right. Yeah, Brazil makes 60 million bags, Vietnam makes 30. So that's 90 million, and the global supply is 170.
Okay.
So you can see
Yeah.
they just these two countries, they kind of dominate the supply. And that's what happened, right? Both the two countries had the problems with too dry, too hot weather for the last 3 years.
Is weather the number one culprit for these price increases?
Yeah, that's what happened is that for 2 or 3 years in a row, both Brazil and Vietnam, they had very bad weather, too dry, too hot, below average rains.
Yeah.
And that just hurt the fields. The trees, they lost vitality. They didn't produce as much, and production went down for sequential several years. So, and with that, global stocks of coffee, they started to went down. Like every year, global consumption was higher than production.
Right.
For you to have an idea, in the last 3 or 4 years, I would say, we used almost 13 million bags more coffee than we produced.
Whoa.
Which is some, 500,000 tons or something.
So that's the interplay of supply and demand there. So
Yeah.
on the supply side, like, we've seen severe weather in Brazil and Vietnam before, but in terms of the droughts that we're seeing,
Yes.
is that climate change? Is that something more structural that's happening?
If you look at the average rainfall in Brazil for the last 4 or 5 years, it has been now almost every year below the historical average.
Right.
So some people are saying that's a change pattern. It's not like it used to be before. Maybe because of deforestation in the Amazon area. Some people say that. We don't know, right? There's no like scientific proof that that's what's happening. But yeah, it might be. It might be. We have the weather has become warmer and drier.
Mm-hmm.
We have less rain. Well, that's what's happening in those two countries and some other countries like Indonesia, right? And also Central America, Colombia. They also had severe problems with weather the last years.
Okay.
And that's what brought us to this situation of continuing below demand production.
And how is demand doing? There have been some concerns, haven't there, on the markets that consumption is finally reacting to the recent price surge.
Yes, we might see some demand destruction with the kind of prices we have now, like in the coming months. But so far, it is going up a lot. And one aspect is the Chinese demand for coffee.
Right.
Yeah, China, all of the sudden, yeah, it seems like Chinese people, they woke up for coffee,
Right. You associate the Chinese market with tea, but we've seen a really rapid growth in coffee chains in China. I mean, Starbucks opened up there many years ago, but we've seen homegrown coffee chains. So that's a big part of this, right? Chinese demand for coffee.
It started to happen in the last 2 or 3 years, mostly because of, young people, a new generation,
right?
Young professionals, they like the hype of the coffee. And so consumption is going, if you see the numbers, it's going up like 10%, 15%, 15%, 20% every year.
Wow.
So that's a new factor in the market that also helped it to boost demand and send prices higher.
So there's the supply factors, obviously, there's demand factors.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about the market structure as well, like in terms of how we trade coffee. And is that also playing a role? So maybe you'd explain to the listeners, traders, when people trade in coffee, they usually hedge, right? They usually hedge against the risk that the price of the coffee that they're buying, that it might fall before the shipment arrives. But that can be tricky when prices are rising, right? That makes that trade way more expensive. And we have seen some impacts of that, right, amongst the trading houses that trade coffee.
Yes, commodities traders, right, not just for coffee, but for anything, they source the produce in the producing country. And they agree with the farmer to have that product in 6 months' time, let's see, right?
Right.
Because they close these deals before the harvest. So
yeah,
when they close the deal, they take a short position in futures, right? To guarantee that they're not going to be exposed to sharp swings in prices.
Yeah.
And what happened when those prices start to go up,
Yeah.
They have to, the exchanges, they have something called the margin call, right?
Right.
So it's like a guarantee.
Right. Like the exchanges require them to deposit more money to cover potential losses.
Yes, deposits. Yeah. So those margin calls, when prices go up too much, they start to be heavy for those traders, right?
Right. It's interesting. We associate margin calls, back in the day with the global financial crisis, right? It's a term we're familiar with.
Yes.
Don't think about it so much when you're having your cup of morning coffee, but we are seeing a lot more of those margin calls right now in the coffee market.
Yes, it happened a lot. And in the other side, these guys have another risk.
Oh, yeah?
Which is the risk that the farmer will not deliver that coffee.
Right.
Because prices that they agreed 6 months ago are 100% off.
Right. Right.
So that's the default. It's not a widespread,
Yeah.
but it happens. It happens. And if that happens, this trader, he's not gonna have the coffee, and he still has a short position in the exchange.
Double whammy.
So it's double trouble for them.
Right.
So what they do, they go there and they lift that hedge. They just liquidate it.
Right.
They liquidate it and they get out of that market. They get out with a loss, of course, big loss. So many traders did that and are doing that not just because of defaults, but because the margin calls got so big.
Right.
So what that makes to the market, there's no much sellers in the market anymore.
So there's a lot of buyers and not as many sellers.
There's just people buying. A lot of speculators, funds, jumping in, buying contracts.
Does that amplify the rise in price because you have less sellers than buyers? So is it kind of adding to the rising price?
Yeah, it did.
So Marcelo, every week on the show, we like to have a real world example of what we're talking about. But the fact is, we're all living the rising price of coffee. So tell us, what is the outlook like for wholesale markets?
We published, Reuters does some polls, right?
Yep.
It surveys the market to see what people see,
Yeah.
like a year from now or something like that. And and people think prices will start to go down by the end of the year.
By the end of this year. Okay.
So we still have to deal with those high prices for a while.
Right.
And basically because although Brazil's crop in 25 is going to be small again, if everything goes okay until 26, then we could potentially have a large crop in Brazil that would alleviate a little bit of this shortage of supply in the markets.
And what about Vietnam? What about how are things looking there?
Vietnam is it's okay. It's not great.
Oh.
It's not great. But the people thought it would be a little bit better this year. They're finishing already their harvest.
Right.
They have Vietnam and Brazil have different periods, right?
Okay.
In different parts of the world, and it was okay. It was not too bad, and it was not too good. But that doesn't help, right?
Right.
Yeah, because the world is running, low in stocks, so they need big crops in those two countries to replenish.
Right. So you almost need like an above average harvest from both of them.
Yes.
In order to kind of get back to baseline.
Yeah, they need the near record crops in big producers.
Yeah.
For the stocks level to return to a level that the industry likes to work.
Got it.
And then prices could go down a little bit. But they're not going to go down as low as they were before. I think, the same with cocoa. After you have a sharp increase in prices for such commodities,
yeah,
most people say we'll never go down to what we were before.
Okay.
We might go down like 50% or 40%.
Yeah.
But we're not going to go to what we were.
So that's my question, actually. 2026 also is a long time away, right? So for people listening to this pod who are coffee consumers.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what does that mean for them? Is the price of their macchiato, their cappuccino, their latte, is it going to keep going up for the foreseeable?
Unfortunately, yes.
Ouch.
Because, there's a lag on how the industry passes on the rising costs to consumers, right?
Right.
Because they work with coffee that they bought some months ago, So all these spikes in prices that we saw in the exchange with the futures,
Yeah.
it still has to arrive to the groceries and to the cafeterias.
Okay.
For the cafeterias, they don't pass on the full price increase, right?
Right.
They let go a little bit of their profit margins because otherwise,
Yes.
people are, people switch, people buy cheaper alternatives.
Of course.
If their preferred coffee goes up 100%, they will probably try to find something cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And quality will probably suffer too.
Right. You mean like producers will start mixing in cheaper beans as a way of getting produced? Right.
They try to buy cheaper, right?
Yeah.
They try to buy cheaper. And when you buy cheaper, you're going to find not as good coffees. Because these guys are selling everything, right? I was talking to some farmers in Brazil yesterday.
Yeah.
And these guys are just, any coffee that they have, they are selling it, like everything.
So talking about that market, supply, demand, are we seeing other countries trying to step in, seeing how lucrative the trade is?
Yeah, that's agricultural commodities are a cyclical market, right?
Right.
So prices go down, production goes down in a while.
Yeah.
Prices go up, production go up. But the thing with coffee, also with cocoa, is that if you plant a tree now, it's going to produce in 3 years' time.
Ouch. Okay. All right.
So it's impossible to fix the situation with higher production from one crop to another.
Okay.
What you have is marginal gains,
right,
in terms of better crop care, and that's we are seeing.
In terms of behavior, what about for the consumer? Are we seeing big changes in consumer habits yet, or is that maybe still to come?
Consumer habits, yes. We did funny that we did a story the other day about this company selling a powder with the taste of coffee, and they were using some vegetable waste.
Okay.
And then they were packaging it,
okay,
like if you wear coffee.
So like coffee from a lab, sort of.
Exactly.
Kind of a synthetic coffee. Okay.
Yes, and there's some so those kind of products appear in those times, right? So it depends how much money a person can or are willing to spend in a bag of coffee, a package of coffee. So certainly there are changes on the way consumers behave. If they go 5 times to Starbucks, they might start going 3.
Right.
If they used to buy this gourmet, specialty, spectacular coffee, they might go for Folgers or
right.
or whatever.
Right.
So that happens. Yeah, it's proved. The statistics show that. Yeah.
Do we know yet whether President Trump has factored the price of coffee into his tariff plan?
Oof. Some people in the market said, the fear of the tariffs on South America.
Yeah.
Central and South America, it's helping these prices go up. For example, with Mexico, right, they proposed a 25% tariff.
Yeah.
Mexico sells coffee to the US. It sells green beans and also sells instant coffee.
Right.
We have some big plants of instant coffee in Mexico. Even, all the big players in the industry, they built those plants there to export to the US market. It's something to watch carefully.
I'm sure you will be. I've got to ask you.
Yes.
What's your coffee? Like, do you drink coffee? Are you a regular?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah?
Yes, I drink a lot of coffee.
Do you have like a favorite brew?
I like to brew at home.
Yeah.
And I like filtered coffee.
Yeah?
Yeah, I prefer that. It's just the taste is I think it's better that way.
Yeah?
Yeah, and I use very good coffees from everywhere. So I have Costa Rican, I have Colombian, I have a couple of Brazilians, I have Guatemala. Yeah, I'm well stocked. So
Marcelo, how many cups a day are we talking?
3 big mugs.
Yeah.
Until lunchtime, and sometimes another one in the late afternoon.
Love it. There's no judgment here. I drink tankards of coffee. Listen, thank you so much for your time.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
A Big thank you to Marcelo for his reporting and insights. You can catch his great work on Reuters.com and the Reuters app. Sound design, music composition, and engineering on this episode was by Josh Summer. Our podcast team includes Kim Vanell, Tara Oakes, Gail Issa, Christopher Walljasper, Jonah Green, David Spencer, and Sharon Reich-Garson. Our executive producer is Leela de Kretzer. Remember, for all your daily news, check out our weekday show, Reuters World News. You can catch it on the Reuters app or wherever you listen to your podcasts.